Whoa. Wow.
It's a lot of people.
He told me it was a fireside chat.
It is. Just like we're chatting behind the scenes, you know?
Yeah. No, I see it now.
So I want this to be very like candid and like honest. I think we've been chatting a lot, just back and forth, and it should feel like a natural conversation. I'll just ask you things that we've been chatting for a long time, and hopefully will inspire many others here. Your work is one that I admire for a long time because I think it blurs pretty much all fields: music, film. I think you're experimenting with new mediums all the time, and the idea of world building for me keeps coming up. Like you have some sort of like a world, I feel, that you try to communicate through all sorts of different artistic kind of like expressions and mediums. Is there something that you feel like connects all of your pieces and your work and your art?
I think the imagination. You know, my heart, my imagination is what connects it all. My passion for art, my enthusiasm for it. You know, I'm always excited about the new things and trying new things and other ways. And you know, I'm a person who wakes up with new ideas all the time, and I don't like walls and boundaries and gatekeepers and all that stuff. So I'm always trying to figure out how I can bring my ideas to life.
Is there inspiration to find for something or somewhere that you go often to?
I don't know. I think just living life, and you know, just reading books. And I mean, the world that we live in is so wild and crazy. Is like, how do you not get inspired by it? And so yeah, I just I always just try to, you know, ask the questions within myself and search and yeah, explore, experiment.
Let's talk about tools and technology.
Absolutely.
You've been experimenting a lot with new tools and new software for a long time, I think. So AI for you is nothing new. Tell us a bit more about that process of experimentation.
Well, yeah, you know, I've been around long enough to have, I mean, look, I'm going to tell you guys something. This is really, really crazy, right? So, like, when I was coming up and putting music out in the early 2000s, really just kind of getting my feet wet in the scene, I used to get a lot of flack because I used to make music on a computer.
That's wild.
You can't imagine it now, right? It's hard to imagine, right? But people would tell me stuff like, oh, this guy, you don't have MPC, you don't have like, you can't make hip hop with no computer. What the fuck is that? Like, get out of here. It's like, so, you know, when people, I just, I've always just kind of ignored any kind of rules and gatekeeping and all that stuff because I just find it to be, it makes me want to do the stuff more. You know, it makes me want to prove people wrong. Yeah.
We were chatting a few minutes ago about this idea of sometimes there's a misunderstanding of new technologies because we try to replicate what we've known, right? And I think one thing that seems consistent with everything you've been doing recently, that for me it feels different. It feels like you're looking for a new aesthetic, you're looking for a new thing. Like, how do you see that relationship of like trying to do a new thing versus trying to replicate what already is out there?
That's a good question. I don't know if I think about it in that way so much. It's just that I try to, again, just stay true to my voice and try to stay true to the things that I'm inspired by, and whatever that looks like, that's kind of what I go for. You know, when I show my friends things that I work on and what I make, they always say, oh, yeah, looks like some shit you would make, you know, because it always ends up being some like weird freak aliens with, you know, weird distorted faces, and some really gross element happens in there. And I was like, you know, that's just my thing, you know, and my work just reeks of it.
Is there something that's been surprising lately about using some of these new tools, new models, and just new set of technologies?
Yeah, I think as far as the surprising aspect of it is just how much easier it's getting to convey the ideas, and how much easier it is to I guess wake up with the idea or not to wake up with an idea, which has been the real fun part, is like the fuck around to find out method, which I think AI is really good for, because, you know, you don't necessarily have to have a preconceived idea or preconceived vision. You just kind of play around, you know, suddenly, you know, you got two characters in the weird location and you're like, you know, I didn't know I was gonna happen. You know, it's like the slot machine method with the stuff too. You don't always get what you expect, and then maybe you pivot whatever your idea was, and then it's like you kind of go into a different tangent with it, and then it becomes something that you didn't intend, and that becomes like a conversation with the medium. And I think that's what's so new and interesting about this stuff is that it's a different thing. You know, instead of trying to push my constant thing. You know, like I was making fun of it because I was like, I've been trying to get this character to walk straight for so long, but he just keeps walking straight and then he turns around and goes back that way.
The research team is here, so you know.
But you know, I was just like, all right, well, fuck it. If he's gonna turn around, then so am I in my head, you know. And then I was switch up my stuff, and I think that's what's been really, really interesting about it is just seeing all the different pathways it can take an idea. You know, I personally use it mostly for development and developing ideas, and you know, I'm always trying to throw stuff at the wall and create kind of pitch decks for movies that I'm working on and stuff. And that's you know, it ultimately just kind of, yeah, one thing will inspire another, and image will kind of, well, I didn't write this in the story, but now this image has to be part of the story, and I have to go back to the script and figure out how to get this thing into the story because now I can't unsee that. So it's really fascinating for that.
Do you think a lot of times you're not sure where you're going and just keep on experimenting and you'll eventually land at some place? Is that place the final one, or you feel like you never actually end?
I think it's a bit of both. Sometimes there's like a clear intention what I want to achieve, but like I said, I think the medium is so cool that you don't necessarily have to go the way you planned. You don't have to go the way you predicted, and sometimes you land in a weird place. You get a weird frame, and then you're like, all right, well, actually, I'm gonna do a new thing based on this frame, and then y'all know how it is. Y'all know y'all been cooking with this stuff. So
If we're here, you know, right?
yeah.
I guess you've collaborated with some legendary artists during your career. And what do you look in like in a collaborator when you want to work with someone specific like Piz?
In collaborators, I look for first. I mean, honestly, I'm the kind of person where like I don't care who you are, or what your name is. If you're an asshole, I don't fuck with you. You know what I mean? Like I just don't. I don't want to be around weird energy, weird people, like any of that. And I love people who want to explore and have a good time. That's the starting point. And yeah, I look. I've been really opposed to gatekeepers. I really have that. This really has bothered me. So I try not to be that myself. And you know, I try to look out for the up and coming people. Try to work with legends.
You have a label of your own.
I have a record label. Yeah.
Can I speak more about that and how you're like working with those artists?
Sure. Yeah. I started a label called Brain Feeder a few years back. We have a lot of artists: Hiatus Coyote, Kamasi Washington, Thundercat. We're we're working with a legendary composer, Akira Yamaoka, who worked on the Silent Hill series. We're just going to start putting his music out, which is really amazing. But yeah, our roster is pretty diverse all across the world, all types of artists.
And I guess the idea of gatekeepers, it's something you want to like change during your label, or perhaps also with technology. You know?
That's it. Yeah. And, you know, having messed around with different mediums, you know, I know how to use a camera. I know how to draw. I went to school for film, but I do music. I play an instrument, but still there's all these boundaries. You know, there's still all these things I can't do, and or just can't do as well as I would like, at least. And I think being able to have the technology now to not have those barriers has just made it so much more fun to wake up and work on stuff, because I can dream up a new character. I can be somebody totally different tomorrow. You know, I can have a new avatar and they can be and exist and create their own things or whatever. And it's just, I find that so inspiring.
Do you feel like you're also doing it sometimes just for fun? Like
Absolutely. So much of it is for fun. I don't really post any of the things I make. I just share them with my friends and, just kind of build with my, in my circle. But I think that's a thing that is totally underrated, man. Like so many people give these creators a hard time about the medium when it's just like a lot of times people just having fun with the shit.
Yeah, if you're having fun, it's great.
Yeah, it's awesome. And, I only wish that I had these tools when I was younger. I wish that I keep saying, anytime something new drops, I was like, man, I wish I was 14. Because like, man, this has been the best. But at the same time, I am grateful for having done the grind as the youth, and actually learning and studying and stuff.
How do you catch up with everything that's going on? Like, what's your method, technique?
What's my method is just being in it, and just experimenting. And I use Unreal Engine as well. Like I made a game like a few years ago myself, and I was like waiting to make Ash. I was waiting to make that movie, and I learned that so I could storyboard. And because I hated my storyboard, so I was like, well, if I get Unreal, I can place all the actors, these digital actors in places, and then that ended up becoming a video game somehow. And just things kind of blossom, and I just try to just stay in the tech stuff and all this stuff, man. I'm just kind of a geek in that way,
Yeah, I mean, you definitely you were in our office a couple of days ago, and I think you met one of our product managers, and you were like, I have like a lot of things to say.
I was looking out for y'all, honestly.
It was great. I think Joel is here, like he can share. But I think that's actually great because I think what we're missing in this conversation is like that other voice, not only from the research and the models themselves and the technologists, but like the artists and the people like you who are using it and seeing where it fails, where it meets expectations,
Well, a lot of people are terrified, man. A lot of people are terrified to talk about it. A lot of people are terrified to talk about what they're doing and how they're using it. And I understand all sides of it. I understand from the creative perspective, and I understand from, the excitement for the technology as well. So I empathize, but at the same time, I'm the kind of person where, like I said, I'm going to use the tools. People are like, well, aren't you afraid that people can just one day just prompt the Flying Lotus song? I was like, well, motherfucker, I got the tools too. Like...
That's fair.
I got the tool too, so y'all are really in trouble now. You know what I mean? Like, so I don't really go for the conversation in that way so much, but I do always hope, and I guess that people try to bring some level of artistry to this and try to bring and find their own voice in this stuff. Like if I see that goddamn cyberpunk alley. Neon blue alley with, in the rain with some girl with some neon glass, I will freak out. If I see one more cat video, someone in here is making cat videos right now while I'm talking.
Any words for anyone who's like, okay, I want to start experimenting with this new thing? What would you tell them? What's your advice to yourself 14 years ago?
I tell some of my friends all the time, I'm like, just get in, just do it, just mess around, because there's just so much fun to be had. You don't have to put pressure on it. You don't have to put the stuff out. It doesn't have to make or break you or whatever. Just have fun with it, experiment and try different stuff. And you think it's going to go somewhere, and try what happens if it goes in a different direction. What happens if they just melt into a puddle, but then you go in the puddle, and then just try it out, see what happens.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being here. You've been a huge inspiration, and I admire really your work. So I appreciate you taking the time.
My pleasure. I hope that helps.
Sign that is a big round of applause. Thank you.
1 second. Last thing I want to tell y'all: don't let anybody tell y'all there's rules to this shit. That is ultimately my message. There's no rules to creativity. Keep doing y'all. Much love.